Hello everyone, it's Galactic Glum, and welcome to another episode, or I guess the first episode, of the Unity RPG tutorial series. So I know I had started this one, maybe, honestly, like almost a year ago. But I ended up dropping that, didn't have enough time to make new videos. But I thought I would try this again in a more structured manner. And obviously that was a year ago, so a lot of things have changed. You're going to see some more complicated code, not necessarily in terms of mathematics or just the complexities is going to be stay the same, but we're going to be using more attributes, Unity attributes, stuff like serialized field, range, headers, things that can just tidy up your editor. You'll see what I mean once we get into making the player controller today, but the player controller is going to be heavily based off the one I was using, or the one I built in the last series. So you don't have to watch that one because we're going to be recoding it in this episode. But just to forewarn you, it is going to be quite similar to the one in the last series or video, because it was really only one video. I plan on doing more WoW-like things. So the first thing we'll do is definitely a controller, but the next thing we'll do is maybe interactable objects. So obviously, we want an inventory, and I'm going to be laying out the things we need in the episodes to come, but I'm guessing definitely within the next few episodes, we're going to be starting an inventory. So those are like the core features. We're going to be starting the core features of an RPG. Inventory, quest system, NPCs, mobs, those stuff are going to come later, but I really just want an inventory and interactable items so you can pick up things. That's my main priority after making the player controller. So maybe next episode, or the episode after that, we'll start doing that. This is also not going to be a complete tutorial in the sense that I'm not going to be showing you guys how to make a complete RPG. Rather than just the framework of an RPG. So then you can go and expand and actually make your own RPG. And obviously, you can do anything with this, and if you just want to do this to learn, that's also fine. But we're going to be doing things like characters, class systems, all that stuff as the core RPG. There's going to be no online segment to this tutorial series, though. That's not going to be in the scope of this project because I am not making an online multiplayer, massively multiplayer, nothing like that. I'm not making it. I'm just making a single player game. If I really feel like it, there could be LAN capabilities, but even then that gets really complex, and it's just probably not in the scope of this tutorial series. That could be in a different tutorial series on how to specifically not make an online RPG, but just how to make an online or LAN game. And we'll set up some players moving and then connecting, and then you could integrate that with the RPG. And I think I like that idea better because that is more like generic. Here's how to make an online game or an online basic framework for a game, and then you can add the gameplay. Whereas this is how to make an RPG framework. So why add online? There's no reason to. It's not in the scope of this. And it's gonna be 3D, obviously. Anyway, so let's get started. So I've created a new project called RPG Tutorial over here, and you can see it's completely blank. It's a 3D project, no assets imported. And I'm just gonna create a new folder in here. So I set up my folder structure like this. So any of my first party code goes into game. Any of my third party stuff, so art, anything I didn't make basically, goes into third party. We usually don't use this till later on. It's when we start implementing, or we add DLLs and plugins and art and stuff, and which we will be doing. I mean, it's not going to be completely ugly. I will definitely grab some things in the asset store and we'll get working. We'll have animations and whatnot as well. That's going to be pretty neat. But that's all going to go into third party. In game, what we're going to have is, I'm going to have a scenes folder, obviously. That's like the basic. And I'm also going to have a scripts folder. Some people may like to call it code. Some people call it C#. Some people don't even have a scripts folder. You can call it source. Whatever you want to call it, that's fine. I call it scripts because that's what I've been doing. That's what I saw. I'm going to also save the scene in game scenes as just game scene. Because we really have no map name for this, so I'm just going to call it game. Okay, so we have an empty scene. Let's make two things. So let's make a 3D object cube here. Okay, and this is going to be the player. Okay, So this little guy here, he's a player. Okay, we could do a capsule if you'd like. I'm doing a cube, and in fact, I'm gonna scale this guy a little up. Okay, so just to make him too high. Alrighty. There you go. I don't know, resetting it, reset the scale as well. The next thing we do is create a terrain. So 3D object terrain. Yeah, and this is just gonna be the terrain. Okay, so then let's move this guy so he doesn't spawn completely out of here, like in the just random place in the world. And I'm also gonna make a new folder in here called materials. So materials, since we're making these materials, they're not third party. That's why they don't go in the third party. So I'm gonna make a new material for player. And then you know what? I'll probably just call it player material just to be a little more concise here. And I'll make it red. Okay. So there you see we have a red player now in our world. Beautiful. Now our terrain does not have any color, it's just white. And let's go and grab a grass texture. So if you go on Google and just go grass texture, I've already searched for it. Even if you search grass, you'll find something. But if you go grass texture, we can just pick any of these. And I like this one. So I'm just gonna click this link here. And actually this is from Skyrim, so we're not gonna do that. We'll grab this one because I know this one is fine. So yeah, we'll scroll down until we find the one we want. And actually, I want this one instead. That's good. Seamless grin, grass. And we can download it. So just press download. So here's the link. It's on DeviantArt. Just find anyone you like, and then you can press download. Then I'm gonna save this image. That's actually my reference project. So let's not open the reference project, but rather, I'm gonna just navigate to the folder I'm on. And I know you guys can't see this. Just I prefer not to show everything I have. But yeah, I'm just going to my folder. I'm just going to the directory of my project, so the folder where my project is in, and I'm just gonna place it there. So, and that's gonna go into third party, and I'm just gonna make a new folder in here. Oh. Textures. Then in here, I'll just call it grass texture. There you go. So you can notice now that we have a grass texture. Now, Unity has digitally imported this, but we are not really using it. So to use a texture in any terrain, you just have to press Edit Textures here. So if you're starting off, just click on this paintbrush in the terrain component, Edit Textures, Add, and then you just go like that. You can also give it a bump or normal map, but we're not going to do that. So there you go. So there is our scene here, and it's more lively now, I think, at least, because of the fact that we have the grass. It doesn't look as bad. So we can save this scene. We're all good to go. Alright, so let's start scripting our player. So the first thing we're going to make is a C# script, player controller. So then we're going to let Visual Studio open quickly. It's pretty fast at doing that. And our player controller is going to be interesting. The way we're going to do is we're going to use something called a character controller to control the player controller, or to allow us to move. The character controller basically handles movement logic. It has things like a slope and everything. Our player controller is going to do some more interesting calculations, and it's going to figure out, rotations and the likes. Because in WoW you have a third party or third person like camera, and you have like rotations and everything. It's all good. And that's what we want to mimic. So that's what we'll do. And actually, it will be a modifier. What am I saying? So we just get rid of these two methods. We're probably going to need them, but whatever. And I'm just going to clean this little up. So the first thing we'll do is we're going to require component. So require component type of character controller. So what this says is that whenever we add, and you'll see, if we go on the player now and we try to add the player controller, since we require the component character controller, it automatically added it for us. And this also means we don't have to check if the player controller already has a character controller, or the player controller's game object already has a character controller as well, because we're going to automatically require it. It's a dependency. It's very neat. So then we can basically declare a character controller. So we can say private character controller, right? character controller. And then we have in our stir method here, we can say we don't really have to check. We don't have to do like if component exists, and this is not actually a method, but if it was, we don't actually have to do this, right? No, we don't need to check at all because we know it's going to exist. We know for a fact. In fact, you can't even remove this component because it's required. It depends on it, right? So then we can say get components because we know it's going to be on this game object, so we can just say, you know, we're certain. So let's get into declaring some variables. So I'm just going to make a new header here, and this is what I was talking about. This header, right? It adds a header above some fields in the inspector. It's basically going to add a header above everything below it until you declare a new one. Okay, and this is going to be the physics header because this is going to be the other physics settings. So then the next thing we'll do is I'm going to make a private float gravity. So this is the basically the downwards force, the gravitational force on our Earth or on our world here. It's only I'm going to make it 20 because that's just the number I like. You could make it whatever if you want. If you're making like sort of space RPG and you want to make gravity super small, you're gonna have to. That's just a pretty bad example actually because there's some other things, but the idea is you can change gravity to whatever you want. Right, but another thing we want to do is you'll notice how we made this private, and we know that in Unity, the private fields private fields are not serialized and shown in the inspector. But to do essentially what I'm saying, to show it in the inspector, all you have to do is serialize the field. What this does is it's basically like, if you guys have seen hide in the inspector, basically what this does is it hides this, makes a variable not show up in the inspector. This does the exact opposite and makes it show up in the inspector, which is serializing it. Because what it does is it goes through this file and it serializes or saves all the variables, you know, that the inspector will be able to access. And that's how it loads in components and stuff. But that's probably a little too low level for this tutorial series. But that's the general idea. So if you want to show a private field, I emphasize field because properties won't work. A property is something that has a get set. Have you ever seen that? So if I had like, I don't know, private float graph get set. This is a property. It will not be serialized. You cannot serialize this. You can technically, but it's not going to work as far as I know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it won't work. But yeah, if you want to serialize a private field or a field that just can't be serialized, then serialize that. And if you don't want to actually show something in the inspector for some whatever reason, I've had a usage like that when I have a private variable, but I actually don't want it to show up in the inspector, then do the hide in the inspector. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to start doing the header settings. So header settings, the movement settings. So we're going to have a few movements, or speeds, I guess. So we're going to have a private float jump speed, private float run speed, private float walk speed, and a rotation speed. And we're going to set defaults to all these. So jump speed, I think I'm just going to make it 8. I'm just making random values. Also, you don't actually need to put floats on these because they'll just be automatically casted. Well, they already floats. Because the only time you actually need to declare it as a float is if you have decimals or, you know, something that makes it a specific float. This does not matter. This does. If you do this, it thinks it's a double. So you need to say it's a float. But this already, okay, it's fine. It's fine with it, kind of thing. So this, I'm just going to do 8, 10, 4, 250. Or even, that's probably a little too fast for rotations. 200 we'll do. This might be a little too fast, like the difference between walk and run, but we can modify those later. And obviously, we want to serialize all of them. So there you go. So I've serialized all of them. The next thing we're going to do is a speed modifier. So when you're walking backwards or when you're strafing, you know, we don't want to walk as fast as when we're just walking or running, right? We don't want to go as fast as the speed of a run or walk, whatever. So we have a speed modifier, which is 0 to 1. It's basically a percentage. And our speed modifier, by default, is going to be set to 75. So let's create a new, private float speed modifier. And I'm just going to set it to 75. But obviously, we want to serialize this. Okay, that's all good. But what if someone sets this to like 2? I mean, that's technically valid. I mean, that's just 200% of our speed, but I don't want that. That's not a functionality I want in my player controller. So in order to limit that, you can do a range thing, which basically, it basically restricts this variable to be a specific range. So we could do 0 to 1. And now, if you look in the inspector, first of all, you're going to see a few changes here. But you'll notice that the speed modifier is actually a slider now. And that you cannot go above or below 0, which is a really neat thing. That's a really cool feature, I think. And the fact that you don't need to make a custom inspector for this stuff is pretty neat, that you just declare it with attributes. So definitely something I would recommend using. Right, so we're going to need, this is basically all those settings we're going to have. We do still need some more private stuff, like we're going to need to keep track of our current speed. We need to keep track of whether we're grounded. So that's not going to be a float, it's actually going to be a bool. Like, what else do we need? We're going to need a velocity, so that's going to be a vector 3 velocity. And you can just initialize that to 0. We have our character controller, but we do also need to check if we're walking, right? Is walking, because then when we start doing animations, we can use that to determine if we're running, walking, whatever. And that's probably going to be actually in the next video. Like, we also have another thing really, like, because I'm going to be implementing a mouse side button as well, so you can actually use your side button to just keep walking. So that's gonna be like, is mouse side button down or something like that. You know, just a ton of these variables. And I guess that's probably it. No, well, actually, we'll need 2 more variables. We'll need a cooldown. This is actually mouse side button cooldown. And I'm just gonna hard code this to 0.5. I'm gonna make a new float current cooldown, and obviously that's gonna be set to 0. This is kind of like the cooldown buffer, if you will. Right, so these are all the variables we're gonna need for our player controller. So let's get started. So this is the start method. There's really nothing else we need to initialize, but the update method is where things get. Is where we're doing everything really. So it's private vote update. Now again, you may be wondering, why am I doing private? Why not make it public? Or why not just leave it like this? First of all, this is the same thing as making it private. The default access modifier for a function or method inside a class in C# is private. So if you don't put anything, it automatically defaults to private, just like doing this. This would just be private. But I think it looks uglier, so I don't do it. So yeah, I'm basically just explicitly setting it because I think it looks nicer, and that's just my rule. I like to actually set access modifiers and not assume, but it's whatever you feel comfortable with. If you don't want to write the extra privates, you can just leave it out. Right, so an update. The first thing we need to do is actually initialize is walking to true, and you may be wondering why. Well, we used is walking to actually determine a few things about our I guess movement, like if we're running, because if walking is false and we're going, then it means we're running, kind of thing. But we need to first do a check to see if the value of it is walking. So in order to do that, I'm just gonna set it to true, and then I'm gonna have an if statement. If input.getAxie run is not equal to 0, then is walking is equal to false. Right? So now it's gonna be true, but if this executes, then it's gonna be false, kind of thing. Right, so the next thing we have to do is check if we are grounded, because we do not want to move while we're grounded, and we don't want to do like jumping and stuff. So the majority of our code, actually all of our code, is gonna stay in here. So if it is grounded, first the first thing we need to do is set our velocity. So velocity is not our speed, but actually how we're moving. You know, what we're moving by. So what we need to do is we're just going to initialize a new vector 3, and I'm going to use the mouse axes to I guess basically initialize our velocity. So let's let on the X, our velocity is just going to be input.getMouseButton 1. Alright, so if we're pressing our right mouse button, okay, then input.getAxie horizontal. So if we're pressing our right mouse button, gonna give me what we're moving on the horizontal axis, which is x. Otherwise, just say 0. Obviously, y is gonna be 0 because that's gonna be that's not relevant basically. Now, on the z axis though, we need to always get the vertical. Okay. It's not going to change. We don't, because basically we're saying if we press actually a button, then do that. Also, another thing to mention is the velocity is going to be multiplied by our speeds later. So that's why it's 0 to 1 basically. And that's how these get axes work. Next thing we need to do is do our cooldown. So if current cooldown is greater than 0, then we just want to keep subtracting it by time to delta time until it reaches 0. So then we'll have another check here, else if current cooldown is less than or equal to 0, then we're just going to cap it at 0 basically. We're clamping it at this point. And then we're going to say if input get axis toggle move. So that's a thing we're actually going to make, and we're going to be doing our input settings in a little bit, where we're going to be setting up, I think, let's see, our 5 more input settings. So you'll see what I mean of this a little later, but that's fine. Alright, so if input.getAxis toggle move is not equal to 0 and current cooldown is equal to 0, toggle move is a button that's just gonna kind of say move until you're done, right? That's where the cooldown kind of comes in. Toggle move is our is mouse side button. In fact, if you want to rename it here, then you can do that. And so I guess I'll just rename it since I have already. So yeah, first we need to reinitialize our cooldown, so that's the toggle move cooldown. The next thing we need to do is also say toggle move or is toggle move is equal to not is toggle move, because this is going to be whenever we press it, so we just need to kind of reverse it. Right, so the first time it's going to, since it's false, it's going to be true, then false, then true, and it's just going to kind of manage itself like that. Okay, so the next part of the script is actually deciding whether or not our toggle move is false. So you may be wondering, but we're already pressing it here. Why do we need to decide if it's false? Well, that's because there's a few other cases when it's not going to be true. This is the case when we actually are toggling the move, but then we're not going vertically, okay? We're not jumping. Or I guess we're not going on the z-axis. We are jumping, or our left mouse button is held down and our right mouse button. So basically we're moving. Then we want to set it to false because we basically went out of that mode. Because toggle move is only going to be true as long as we don't touch our mouse in that sense. As soon as we take control over that. And this is different than rotating the camera, alright? This is purely as soon as we take control of the player and we stop telling it to just move. We don't want to keep telling it to do so, basically. So we're going to say if we are in toggle move, okay, and we are going vertically, or we are not going vertically actually, or we are jumping, so we're actually that's the jump button in Unity, or we're pressing both buttons, so 0 and 1, then is toggle move is equal to false. Okay, so basically we have taken control over our character, and therefore toggle move is no longer valid. Okay, so the next thing is determining how we want to basically increment our velocities, or in other words, basically just setting our velocities. So this is going to be the z-axis for the velocities, and that's going to be pretty simple actually. So as long as, let's copy this. So if input.getMouse button 0 and getMouse button 1, so if we're pressing both buttons down, okay, and I just demonstrated it accidentally, and, oh, I keep doing that, and our vertical axis is equal to 0, so we're not moving basically. Or we're toggling move. Then there you go. Velocity.z is plus equal to 1. We're just gonna keep incrementing that. And likewise, we just need to clamp it as well. There you go. So I just clamped it. I said velocity.z is greater than 1. So then just set it to 1 kind of thing. Next thing is we're going to be doing our x. So it's plus equal to input dot get axis strafing. So strafing is going to be the Q and E keys. And that's just going to actually be moving side to side without rotating, just actually strafing. Guessing, strafing means. But that's what we do for our velocities first, because that's really the only time it's affected. Because when you'll see when we do the camera control, we're actually rotating our player all the time anyways. So in a way, that's how we actually do moving to different, I guess, angles, or not just always moving the same, direction. That's we do different directions. Strafing is really the only time we actually set X. Right, so let's check. We need to check one thing, and this is our input modifier basically. So if input get mouse button 1, actually I think I had it copied. Probably did. Yeah, I did. So if we're pressing both buttons, or do we want to do that? No, we actually do not. So if we're pressing the, sorry guys, if we're pressing the right mouse button and our horizontal is not equal to 0, and so basically if we're moving on both axes and we're pressing the right mouse button, then we want to apply our speed modifier to basically slow us down. So velocity.x is times equal to speed modifier. Get axis, my bad. There you go. And okay, so we've done our x velocity. So now the last thing we need to do is make sure we need to jumping and set our current speed. So current speed is pretty simple. It's going to be set to our input.get axis vertical. And as long as, so if that's so if our input.get axis vertical is less than 0, or we're pressing our right mouse button and we're going horizontally, so we're moving horizontally, or at least we're pressing horizontal keys, or we're strafing, then we want to set it to speed modifier, otherwise just 1. The reason we're setting it to speed modifier is because, actually I'll leave it like that, is because this would have taken effect here, see? Right? So, all clear now, hopefully at least. And this current speed is going to be used, it's for one going to be used when we are actually applying a velocity, because the idea is here, and in fact, I should probably set it to current speed modifier, because the idea is, we're saying, if we have a special case of if we're moving sideways or we're strafing, then slow us down, or we're moving backwards, because that's another thing, then slow us down. Otherwise, just leave our current speed not modified, right? And that's the reason why we set the speed modifier here. And because we do this, right, we multiply by x. When we're gonna re-multiply our velocity actually right here by the speed modifier. So we're gonna say if we are walking, then multiply by the walk speed times our current speed modifier. If we're running, yeah. So if we're not walking, then we must be running, kind of thing. That's the assumption we make here. Last thing we need to do is jumping. So if, and the reason I could do it the other way, doesn't matter, but do it here. So if we press jump, jumpo. Well, I thought I had that. Oh, right, it's not a mouse button. Okay. And another thing is, you'll notice that we can only jump when we're grounded. That's why we have this check up here anyways. So that's that. So the last thing, there's the one last thing we need to do. And we need to say velocity is equal to transform direction, velocity. This is going to transform it. And then in here, we need to do some rotations. Though I do want to make sure this all works, but that we can do in a little bit. Right, so we just need to say, we're going to rotate our character now. So if input the get mouse button, so get our right mouse button, because that's usually what you use to rotate, I'd imagine. Then we're going to say transform.rotation is equal to quaternion.Euler. So we want to initialize the quaternion from Euler angles. And this is going to be 0 for camera.main.transform.Euler angles.y and 0. So we're always going to be rotated the way our camera is. That's the idea here. Otherwise, if we did not press the right mouse button, we just want to rotate by and our horizontal axis multiplied by our rotation speed. Multiplied by time delta time. Another thing is, we're not multiplying our velocity by time and delta time because we're actually going to be using the character controller to move. So the next thing is just set our velocity.y to be gravity. Multiply by time to delta time here, because that's still in effect. And then last thing is set is grounded. So we can actually do an interesting thing here. So we can use a bitwise operator to basically determine if we're grounded. So the character controller right here has a move method, and this returns a collision flag. So we can say, let's just move, and we're say velocity. Yeah, there's velocity here. So if we say character control move, and then we say and, so the and bit operator, collision flag stop below. So if we had a collision flag with anything below, then it's not equal to 0, and we're all good. Or not then, if it's not equal to 0. Basically, if that happened, then. So if it's true, then we're grounded. Another thing is, actually that's it. Yeah, that should be all we need. Let's just set up our inputs here. And that should be our, I'm just gonna take a look at the time here. That should be all our player control stuff done. So let's set up our inputs now, yeah? So I have to actually get them. They should be in input here. Yeah, they are. So let me open that up with code. Or not. It does not. Is it like serialized or something? Yeah, it is. Okay. We're gonna have to open up Unity here, so 1 minute. As I get Unity open. And then cancel. Thought you can have multiple Unity projects open. Guess not. Oh. So yeah, we'll just start copying them. And you'll notice it's basically the same scene because, yeah, it's my sample project. Okay, so let's go into input settings here. Axes, and we have a size. So that's 20, this is right now it's 18. We actually want it to be 23, so 5 more. There it is. So let's actually go back. What did we have? So we had to cancel, so we want this one. This is the first one. So this is actually gonna be called toggle move, and this is the one I was talking about. So this is gonna be the side button, and so the positive button. There's the descriptive. Let me enlarge this here. Descriptive name, descriptive negative name, negative button is all gonna be blank. Positive button is gonna be mouse 3, which is the side button code. We really don't need an alt, negative, and positive, and then this stuff is just gonna all be the same. So it's a toggle move. Okay, we're gonna have a run. And that's going to be a left shift, okay? And that stuff is just going to be the same. So, yeah, I'm just going to go through this quickly, and we'll do it. The next one's going to be strafing, and actually that should be the last one. Don't know why we have 23. So strafing. It's gonna be EQ. That's what I was talking about before. There you go. That's all we need. So actually, I'll get rid of the last two. So make it 21. There you go. All solved. If we actually move, we should be able to move. Assuming I did not make any errors, we should be able to move. And you'll notice we're moving way too fast. And I think that's because we actually do need to apply delta time here. This is my bad. Sorry. We do need to apply to the final product. Okay. There you go. So you see we're rotating. Everything's actually works pretty nicely.